Barrett Sallee, National College Football Analyst, CBSSports.com. I mean, did the team not already pick the guy, Barrett, in that championship game?
Well, they picked him last year in the championship game, but, I think that's something that Nick Saban always says. And I think he's right. The team's going to pick the guy, and the team obviously picked Tua Tagovailoa when it mattered most last year, and he probably will do that. That team will probably do the same this year when Tua is back and able to practice this fall. But that's just Nick Saban doing what Nick Saban does. Nick Saban always says something like this. He always says it'll be settled when it's settled, and whenever it's settled, he won't tell any of us, and then they'll go to the first game, and then we'll all magically know. But that's just what he does. He doesn't ever tell you anything, and honestly, I don't think he tells the players anything either. Now, they have a hint because, they're taking the snaps. They know who's getting the ones and who's getting the twos, but I think by and large, Nick Saban keeps this a mystery to everybody as long as he possibly can, and his intent is to do that this year. I don't necessarily think that's going to work, but clearly it's his intent, and it should be his intent, and that's always the case with Nick Saban. But again, it's not him making the decision this time. He can sit there and say with inexperienced quarterbacks, okay, well, we're going to let this thing play out. But these are two guys that can start. They know they can start, and if they aren't going to start, they're going to make the decision for Nick Saban, not the team, not the coaching staff, not anybody except the two quarterbacks.
Can you imagine July the 18th, Wednesday, July the 18th, there at the College Football Hall of Fame? Nick Saban's going to have a very difficult day because he even got irritated last week at even asking about the quarterback and even asked the media to let it play out. I mean, could you imagine that day is going to be HELL for Nick Saban if he's really offended by quarterback questions?
Oh, yeah, that's all he's going to get. I mean, except the one random guard question by the local Alabama magazine. But, no, it's all he's going to get. And, he better not get frustrated because he should know that it's coming. And he should also know that his frustration does nothing other than create a reputation and an aura around him that, I think is not fair and really isn't true. But that's all he's going to get. And, he has his own way of dealing with that. When Coker got there 2, 3, or 4 years ago, whenever it was, a lot of people were asking about Jake Coker because he was kind of a mystery man. And he answered every single one of those questions by talking about how great Blake Sims was. So he'll answer whatever question he wants to answer, regardless of what was actually asked. And I'm sure that will be the case in Atlanta. But it's going to frustrate him because all of that stuff always seems to frustrate Nick Saban.
But it's just kind of unique. I mean, even though Nick Saban, we kind of pick up that he wants us to back off a little bit, but he even said it this past Thursday. He said, would you guys just back up a little bit, let it kind of play out. And I guess, hey, we're going to let it play out, but we're talking about the world of gambling right now. If you're a gambling man, does Jalen Hurd, let's just pick the middle of the season, just to be fair. Going into that bye week, out of Tennessee, between Tennessee and LSU, is Jalen Hurd still on the roster, in your opinion?
No.
I don't either.
Because I don't think he's going to win the job. And I don't think once he wins the jobs, I don't think he's going to be willing to stick around. And really, I think Alabama will want him to stick around, but he's just got to look out for Jalen. And there's always a time in college football where it's okay to be a little selfish. I mean, it's a lot like minor league baseball. You're there for the team. You want to be there for the team, and both of those guys did a great job throughout the course of the 2017 season and through the national championship game, being there for the team. Just like a AAA baseball player, just like a AA baseball player. That's awesome, and they handled it great. But at some point, you got to look out for yourself. You got to be a little selfish, and I think that will happen with Jalen. And I don't know if it's going to happen sooner. I don't know if it's going to happen later, but it'll happen at some point, and I think it'll happen. Once he loses the job and realizes that Tua is going to be the guy. So, getting back to Nick Saban in Atlanta. He can sit there and tell you guys to back off, but he's got a whole new group of folks asking him questions in Atlanta. He's going to have the ESPN folks asking him the questions in the car wash. He's going to have all kinds of people that haven't been told to back off and really don't care if Nick Saban says back off, asking him questions throughout the course of the offseason.
I mean, it's going to be a miserable day for him. And as much as we see that Nick Saban loves to control the message, it's not going to be fun for Nick Saban in Atlanta because he's gonna go off. And that's, I mean, in reality, I think that's what we want, right?
No, for sure. That's what we want. And really, I mean, honestly, I don't really know if Nick Saban cares.
Sure.
Because I don't think all these coaches say they don't hear what we're all saying about them. They all do, even Nick Saban. Like, they all do that. But, I think Nick Saban still wants to get his point across. And if he does go on a rant, I think in his mind that is beneficial to him because then the rest of the world hears what he's been saying all along. The team's going to decide it. He's not going to make a decision. It's going to be a battle and blah, 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 blah. So if it comes at the expense of him, looking a little like a crazy person at times, he's fine with that because it's still getting the message that he wants to get across out there to the masses, even if it does at the same time, create a bunch of sound bites for all of us to use for the rest of the summer.
We're talking to Barrett Sallee, CBS Sports National College Football Analyst. Barrett, good news on your front because you love bowl games. There's a few more that you can watch.
Exactly, and the Myrtle Beach Bowl is going to be fantastic, Chicago and somewhere else. But there's no such thing as too many bowl games. I think there's this idea, and Chris Childers and I had a discussion on this on Full Ride this afternoon, or this morning and this afternoon, where he was like, well, look, in 1996 we had 18 bowl games, and it was fantastic, and now it's just oversaturated. And I think that's just not even really true. Those 18 bowl games back then, they all mattered in a variety of different ways for national championships, for all kinds of stuff. And what actually has happened is the bowl season hasn't been bloated to 40 or now and soon 43 teams. It's been reduced to the college football playoff and national championship games and the New Year's Six games. So those are the meaningful ones. And you can argue that the New Year's Six really aren't at times. But so what we've had develop instead is a bunch of great TV programming, a bunch of compelling matchups, a bunch of games engineered to pit teams of similar ilk together. And at the same time, provide quality content for the fans, provide, I think, compensation for players that goes above and beyond what they get during the regular season and is certainly deserved. So we can argue participation trophies all day long. To me, this is the same as an end-of-the-year school party when you were a kid. So regardless of grade, whatever it is, whatever grades you got, A, B, C, D, or F, you still went to the party, you still had cake, you still had fun, you still played games. That's all the bowl games are right now. And at the same time, the players receive compensation. That's great. And if you don't want to watch on a random Tuesday night in December, don't watch. You don't have to.
Do you? And you've also, and I was looking back through your archives, you wrote about this a couple of weeks ago with the Pac-12 moving 5 to 7. In other words, Pac-12 passes a rule. Matter of fact, it was last Monday that you published the article that they passed where you cannot be a 5-7 team and go to a bowl game. Do you agree with what the Pac-12 did?
No, I think they're creating creating a solution to something that wasn't a problem. If you need to fill a bowl spot and you're a 5-7 team, fill it. Go do it because it provides exposure for your program. You would think at 5-7, you're probably not having the best season anyway, so you might be making a coaching change. And the new coach certainly would like to see what the players on the roster are capable of in a game situation with some new stuff maybe implemented through the interim staff. You're basically, creating fixing a problem that doesn't exist. I don't think anybody really cares that a 5-7 Mississippi State team won the St. Petersburg Bowl, that a 5-7 Nebraska team won the Cure Bowl a few years ago. So what? That's fine. So in this day and age of expanding bowls, there's going to be more of them, and that's fine. And what the Pac-12 is doing is really, I think, putting itself at a disadvantage because some of the programs really need bowl games if they're 5-7. And if you're the conference, shouldn't you be looking out for all of your programs, no matter how good or bad they are on the football field?
We're talking to Barrett Sallee right now, CBS Sports National College Football Analyst. Barrett, let me go back here for Alabama's schedule. Coach Stallings asked me a question last week, and it was kind of hard for me to answer. He said, who is Alabama's most difficult opponent for the 2018 regular season? If I flip that question to you, who would you say?
Auburn. I mean, look, Auburn's beaten Alabama 2 out of the last 5 years. They know how to get it done. And, I can know that against Tuscaloosa, and that's always a tough place to play. But, Auburn knows how to do it. Now, they don't do it all the time. They don't do it the majority of the time, but who does, right? So that is clearly the case. They have an ultra-talented team. I think they've got a coach who knows what he's doing. He's got a coach that I think has figured out how to coach in big-time games, the last 2 games of the season notwithstanding. So, it's Auburn. It's a team that at least is I wouldn't say is complacent, but they're never intimidated by Alabama. Other teams go out there, they see that maroon and white, and they lose. They see that helmet, and they're done. Auburn doesn't do that. They do lose, and they lose more times than they win, but they know how to get it done. And I've told you this, and I'll argue this all year long. I think Auburn was the best team in the country last year when they were on their best game, but they were very average when they were on their worst game. And Alabama's different. Their worst game is still comparable to a lot of other teams, A- games. So, Auburn's definitely a challenge. They know how to get it done, and they've got a lot of returning talent. So that I think is clearly the toughest one out there. And, it's kind of hard to sort of forecast what each team is going to be at the end of the season. But assuming everybody stays healthy, it's going to be a dogfight.
Let me run through, if you don't mind. Let's play a little win-loss here on their schedule. Washington open up right there in Atlanta, Georgia, the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Is that a win or is that a loss for Auburn?
I think it's a win, mostly because I don't think there's going to be the Washington defense. I think is going to suffer tremendously without Vita Vea. I mean, whether he was making plays or not, he was a monster.
Sure.
So I think that's a win, but it'll be close.
All right, so let's skip Alabama State. Let's give them a win there. LSU, 3rd week of the season in Lee County. Is that a win?
That's a win.
Arkansas
at
home.
LSU's not going to know itself then.
Yeah, Arkansas at home. That's a win. Southern Miss, I think we both agree. That's a win. At Mississippi State, the first week in October in Starkville. Is that a win?
That's going to be tough. I mean, I think that's one of those games where you call it a toss-up. I think it does depend on where each team is health-wise at that point. It's a tough place to play. I think it's a win, but would I be surprised if it's a loss? Not at all.
All right, Tennessee at home. That's a win, right?
That's a win.
At Ole Miss, that's a win.
That's the one team that I'd be scared of for every team in the SEC this year.
Really?
Because Ole Miss can score 40 on anybody. They'll probably give up 50 to a lot of people, but they can score on anybody.
All right, so let's skip to Texas A&M at home. That's a win, right?
Yeah, well, yes, but the road team has won that game every year since Texas A&M joined. But, yeah, I would say most likely yes.
All right, then at Georgia.
That's a loss.
Liberty, and then at Alabama. Yeah.
I think Auburn will be 11-1 or 10-2 going to Tuscaloosa.
Okay. I mean, they've got a nasty schedule. I guess now I know why they're wanting to flip that Georgia and Alabama and maybe opposite years where they play one on the road and then one at home and then not both on the road. So that's a nasty schedule for the Tigers.
No, it's true. Well, here's the thing with that whole discussion, and Kirby Smart brought it up in at SEC Spring meetings, and I think Alan Green did too. The home road like sort of gauntlet that Auburn has to do one year, and then Georgia has to do when they play Tech and Auburn in November. It's not the location of those games that's the problem; it's the dates. If they just move the Auburn-Georgia game back to middle October, late September, whatever, then you can deal with going on the road if you're Auburn and playing Georgia and Alabama, and going on the road if you're Georgia and playing Auburn and Georgia Tech on the same seasons. You need to move the date. If you move the date, it's fine.
As you look at that schedule, man, it's hard to navigate that one. I mean, but then you also look at it from last year. They got the advantage. I mean, it's hard to go down there and win too, and Georgia and Alabama. So it kind of, it does work out for you some, but I can understand the argument too.
Yeah, I think they're good. I think they have issues. They have issues they need to solve, and I think they're a little more, difficult to solve this year than they were last year and years past. But they still have talent. So, I think the difference between Auburn now and Auburn 3 years ago is Gus Malzahn, I think, has learned a little bit more as to how to coach with a lead and how to be a little bit more creative. Now, I think that was a big reason why they beat Texas A&M, Georgia, and Auburn in November. Texas A&M, the offense was completely different. Georgia, the mindset was completely different. The foot was on the gas. Alabama, the mindset was completely different. The foot was on the gas, and it worked. they got banged up in the process, but it worked.
You buying a lot of this Tua Tagovailoa Heisman odds favorite in the SEC? I mean, do you buy this? I mean, it's kind of hard for me to put him in that conversation yet.
Well, I mean, I would definitely put him in the conversation without a doubt. But right now, according to Vegas, he's the most likely quarterback to win the Heisman Trophy, which I think that's way aggressive. And that's not to say you won't, but and I know odds are designed to get equal money on both sides. But if you're telling me that right now in mid-June that Tua Tagovailoa is more likely to win the Heisman Trophy than Trace McSorley, I'm not. That's crazy. I mean, because Tua's played one half of football. It's a great half of football. It was one half of football. Trace has done that for a while. Justin Herbert's done that for a while. So I think he can win it, but should he be that high right now? No, not at all.
Maybe Nick Saban's already told Vegas who's going to be the starting quarterback.
Maybe, but even still, honestly, even still, if that's the case, if he was already the starting quarterback, I still think it's crazy that he's that high up the board right now.
Hey, it's unique. I mean, when I first saw it in Athlons, I was like, no, it's a great publication. I love it. But then I started seeing officially where you could go and lay hard-earned cash, and I'm like, wow. And then it becomes like it's more frequent now. It's not just one or two sports books. It seems to be
everybody.
Yeah, it's everybody. And I'm going, how can this really even be? And it's just, Sky, I mean, okay. Anyway, I mean, maybe Nick Saban needs to call Vegas and tell them to back off too, since he's telling you and I to back off.
Well, yeah, right. I'd still put my money on Trace McSorley. I mean, I'm just saying, with the odds you're getting, I'd put my money on Trace McSorley.
ESPNU on SiriusXM podcast, SEC smothered and covered. The best way to connect with Barrett Sallee is straight up. Join those 70,000 SEC fans and college football fans to connect with Barrett Sallee on the Twitter account. Hey, Barrett, as always, thank you for your time. I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it.